Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this special media conference being put on by the leader of the opposition, the Honorable Joseph Harmon. This press conference is specifically to deal with the issue of severe flooding that is occurring in several parts of the country and thousands of persons being affected. The Honorable Leader of the Opposition is joined this afternoon by a battery of his fellow members of Parliament. Led by the Honorable Kemraj Ramjatan, David Patterson, Annette Ferguson, Ganesh Mahipal, Ronald Cox, Sherwin Holder, Dineshwar Jaiprashad, Vincent Henry, and Jermaine Figueroa. We'll start with an opening statement from Mr. Harmon. He will be followed by the Honorable David Patterson, who will give a historical overview of the flooding situation, particularly with regard to Georgetown, and outline some of the current challenges that are being faced. And then we will have reports from the respective regions 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, and 10, and also Georgetown from the geographic MPs from those regions who will outline the situation in those regions which have been identified as the regions that are most seriously affected. So welcome once again. Thank you for joining us on this wet afternoon. And Honorable Leader of the Opposition, I now invite you to present your statement.
Thank you very much, Imran. Guyanese in a number of communities across the country have experienced severe flooding over the past week. Some of these communities are not known to be flood prone, and several others have not experienced flooding from 2015 to 2020 after mitigation measures were put in place by the APNU AFC administration. While there has been persistent, intense rainfall compounded by high tides, the main reason for the severe flooding and the slow receding of water from the lands is executive neglect at the level of central government. MP David Patterson will detail some of these in his presentation shortly. We reiterate our call for the urgent establishment of a national interagency task force, and for such a task force to benefit from the wide availability of skills and resources in all segments of our society. In view of the worsening situation and more intense rainfall projected, we have established a flood emergency center at the office of the Leader of the Opposition. We recognize that there has been and is likely to be more disruption to lives, damage to property, loss of crops and livestock. We recognize that there has been a shortage of information, advisories, and sufficient warning, and no central portal for persons to report their distress and how they have been affected and their needs. The Flood Emergency Center is intended to assist in collecting, collating, and disseminating information for the benefit of the public and the Civil Defense Commission. This Flood Emergency Center can be contacted on telephone number 503-2465. I repeat, 503-2465. And other means of communicating with the center will be made public shortly. That is to say, the WhatsApp, SMS numbers, email address, and social media messaging. We urge the PVP regime to take the matter of flooding seriously and to cease playing politics with the lives of Guyanese at a time when they are suffering. I'm appalled to receive reports from Kwakwani in Region 10 that a certain minister of government has been making inquiries from persons as to whether they voted for the PPP before they can receive a hamper. My dear fellow Guyanese, you will hear from several of our MPs who will provide information on how flood has affected communities and the discriminatory practice by the PPP regime in dealing with relief. This, my dear brothers and sisters, has to end. And we must cater to all Guyanese in their time of distress. We also repeat our call for those affected to be given compensation for their losses. Finally, I ask all Guyanese to take the necessary precautions, particularly those who live in flood-prone areas, and to remain safe in the days ahead. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harmon, for your statement. I'll now invite MP David Patterson to provide an overview on some of the challenges we currently face.
Thank you very much, Imran. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we are.
Thank you very much, Imran. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. The APNUFC has noted the claims by the PPP as to the reasons why the city and the rest of the country has been flooded. They have blamed sleeping pump attendants and excess rainfall. We reject this claim out of hand, both the fact that the rainfalls are excessive and pump attendants are sleeping. Our reason being, the May-June rains come like clockwork. Every Guyanese is well aware that our rainiest season is the May-June rains. The exact similar situation the coalition administration encountered in actually 6 years ago, exact to the date, 1st of June 2015, where obviously, as predicted, the May-June's the skies in June opened up and fell on the country. And at that, in June of 2015, we did a rapid assessment, just like it's done. And there were 11 sluices, and particularly in Georgetown. And we found 4 were working. There were 7 pumps at 7 different locations. 2 were working. We found that the outfalls, the main outfalls, of which there are 6, none were dredged for decades. And we found that several areas, we found that 2 of the sluices were in private property and inaccessible to the staff of the MNCC, as well as the other staff, which is NDIA and the rest of the country. In response to that, we called out all stakeholders. We called out private citizens, and this is well documented. You can research that. We called out Ministry of Communities at the time, Ministry of Agriculture, NDIA, the NDCs, Mayor and City Council, at that time, Ministry of Public Infrastructure, as well as the Ministry of Health and the CDC. And we did an assessment and we asked some honest, straightforward questions. And the reason we call all the stakeholders out because drainage in Guyana is bigger than any one single entity. MNCC in 2015 when asked quite frontally what can they handle and what they can't. And they were quite frank. They said that they have financial challenges, everyone knows that, and that some of the pumps they were unable to fix because of financial issues, technical capacity, shortage of spares, etc. And what we did, we implemented a system in 2015, June, 6 years ago, whereby we allocated different responsibilities to different agencies. So we said to MNCC, repair what you can repair. NDIA,
recording stopped.
Remember NDIA, Sussex Street sluice was not in operation for years. They undertook to fix that because they said they would have done a similar sluice somewhere else recently. And we allocated responsibility to everyone, and collectively, we were able to repair all the sluices and pumps. And then after having repaired all the sluices and pumps, we looked at the next major issue, and that was the clearing of the canals, getting the water to the pump, drainage, and we implemented a system where there was blockages. We brought in additional pumps. This is all, and we've been doing this every single year since 2015. Additional pumps were brought in. We just don't depend on the 11 happening now. I see the persons on quarantine are complaining, as well as the person in South and Sophia. With the closure of some of the sugar estates, Gaisuco, even before the closure, Gaisuco does not, they were responsible for several pumping stations. As you would know, there's a pumping station in Ogle, there's one at the top by Starlight Driving. But not only the pumping station, there's one in Buxton, but they were not only responsible for that, but they're responsible for the clearing of, because of course that they use the waterways for their, while the estates were operational. When the Gaisuco ran into financial difficulties, we had to implement a system where somebody has to take responsibility for it. And we passed that responsibility on to the Ministry of Public Infrastructure and NDIA. So therefore, obviously what we would have done during the dry season, and basically we deployed excavators along all the main water canals, including those in the Berbice region. That hasn't been done. But as I said, so the rainfall comes every single year. The current situation is that the government, for some strange reason, has been caught with their pants down, sitting on their hands. They've made no mitigation. We, as a coalition government, we had communities interventions, and I'm sure anybody can go, all you journalists could go and do that, where we had community liaison persons, where we contacted the community rep in the area, and they would give us feedback, because in some areas, you know, as everyone knows, there would be a block culvert, a block bridge, somebody doing construction work and blocking the flow of the water to get out. So we had a system whereby the communities were involved as well, and whereby we use the communities, particularly in Georgetown, we use the rep, whoever it is, irrespective of who the constituency rep, and we use them, and we employed persons from that community to go and clear these drains prior to May, June. And the success of that program was self-evident. That is nothing to do. So what we have now is just simply lack of understanding of what they're doing. A full distrust, and there's been an effort to discredit every single thing, every single program put in place by the coalition government. So they fired all the community liaison officers. They sent in some of their party representatives in the pretext. And that was done, as everyone would know, that was only done on, for May the 24th and 25th. When there's a massive cleanup, you saw a lot of persons weeding carpets. But weeding carpets does not help drainage. It actually contributes to the slow movement of the water, because what happened, the grass that you would have fell into the drains and retarded the flow of the water. Lack of engagement with communities. They have reverted now back to full distrust of the mayor, MNCC. It is a historical fact. It's a historical fact that the MNCC needs help, needs financial help when it comes to two things in particular: drainage and garbage. We recognize that, and that we set, and obviously what MNCC continues to do is to do as much as they can and stretch the limited budget they can, but that is not optimum. That is why we work very closely with them. We said to them, what you can handle, what you will not be able to handle, some other agency will be able to do that. As I said, one of the crux of it, and which is what is going on now, you have the CDC had several mobile pumps. And the main problem you have with the flooding of the city in particular is not just the operation, it's the speed in which the water can get to the outfalls. And so, and obviously it is a gravity-fed system. So what we did is we induced the system by introducing pumps along some key sections of that. Obviously, that's you can drive around the city, you can see that's not being done. Unless the administration changes their approach, stop blaming people, stop driving around at night and knocking and saying and walking with the media to see if the pump attendants are awake or not. The pumps can run for as much 24 hours, we still will be flooded, because the key interventions It's not just that the pump and it's loose. The key interventions were not done this year. On behalf of the AP and UAFC parties, I would like to urge persons, just like the leader did in the low-lying areas, to take precautions, because obviously it's almost a bit too late. It's a bit too late to do to make interventions. So I would ask you to put sandbags in front of your place. The weather forecast has predicted that we will have heavy rainfall until Friday. We get a break on Saturday, or we get a break on Friday, and then even more intense rainfalls next week. They too late, too little by this administration. But this is a constant refrain of the administration. Whatever was done, irrespective if it worked or not by the coalition government from 2015 to 2020, that has been destroyed. I mean, the South Rumpelt, as you know, out of the Caneview Avenue, we used to pump it over. There's an irrigation canal right next to it. There's an irrigation canal right next to that. That drain has been blocked off. If you head at the top of Houston for the oil and gas, they've blocked that drain off. So therefore, obviously, there's no additional interventions to be made. So, ladies and gentlemen, we had a very well working system. That is not something that can be disputed. I mean, that was something I know that the coalition was given the credit for. What is happening now is sad to see we regress to pre-2015 state whereby you sit down and you blame someone else. Georgetown and Guyana is for all of us. Flooding affects every single one, all constituencies, including constituencies won by the AP and UAFC and constituencies won by the PPP. So we call on the government to engage stakeholders. Since August of 2020, there's been absolutely no engagement with the opposition. Absolutely no engagement with the opposition. They not even to ask if we have any ideas, if we have any issues which we can help to put forward to alleviate this problem, which is countrywide. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's my little statement on where we were, what we did, very quick, brief synopsis of what we did, and exactly what is the current situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comprehensive statement, MP Patterson. We'll now invite MP
areas, what I would say are predominantly PPP stronghold areas that they would have won during the elections, and they would have bypassed several hard-hit communities within the Pomeroon, especially the lower Pomeroon area, They actually bypassed places like Hackney, Aberdeen, Marlborough, and other communities that are known APNU AFC stronghold, and they went straight down to St. John's. That's the last community in the Pomeroon River. They passed Akiwini Creek, which is just nearby, and didn't give any assistance to those poor farmers that were, that area was the hardest hit. So I am a bit puzzled as to their strategy in terms of providing this flood relief. This should be for all Guyanese, whether people vote for APNU AFC or they voted for PPP. The flood water comes for everybody. It doesn't discriminate. So I do not understand why the administration seems to be discriminating against the APNU AFC support areas. Hello, can you hear me, Imran?
Thank you very much for your report, MP Holder. We appreciate it. We now ask MP Ganesh Mahipal to give us a report on Region 3.
Thank you very much, Imran. Good afternoon, Comrade Leader. Good afternoon, colleague members of Parliament and friends from the media. For the entire morning, half day, and up until 3 o'clock, I had the privilege of visiting communities from Parika to Potentia, Parika on the east bank of Essequibo to Potentia on the west bank of Demerara. And several communities are still underwater, notwithstanding today being a fairly sunny day with scattered showers here and there. Some of the communities that are heavily affected include Parika itself, Hyde Park, Namles, Bell West Canal number 2, Stanley Tongue. There's Good Fortune, Plantain Walk, Klein Podroin, Tushin, Iflot, Virgin Nugent, Denamstel, Crane, Vreden Hoop. And I received reports that Wakenham and Legwan are also affected. Unfortunately, I did not get the chance to go to these two islands as yet, but I foresee myself being there tomorrow. I want to say that in 2015, when the coalition took office in May of 2015, there was heavy rainfall, and Region 3 had communities that were flooded. And we immediately took action by way of clearing canals, drainage, trenches, and so on, drains and trenches. And what we did was to establish in 2016, the very next year, early of that year, I think, we established a regional disaster risk management committee. And this committee was established by the Civil Defense Commission. And if my memory serves me correct, it was Mr. Chabilal Ramsarup, who was the Director General at that time for CDC. And I had the privilege of serving on that committee along with all the stakeholders of Region 3, including the Region 3 Chambers of Commerce and Industry. We had the fire department or the fire service, the police, the health department, the public works department, and the administration department of the region. It was a collaborative effort, and we were reaching frequently. Whether rain was falling or not, we were reaching because we knew that the May-June period is the flood period, so to speak, in our region. And coming out of our meeting as a regional disaster risk management committee, we established that there was need for us to address these clogged drains, these trenches and canals, clean them and so on, before the May-June period. And that is why in 2016, 17, 18, and 19, whenever the region was awarding contracts during the month of March, April, there was a series of contracts for the cleaning and maintenance of drains, canals, and trenches. And contracts would be awarded so that work can commence. And by the May-June period, you would have proper drainage so that the water can recede whenever the May-June period comes. And we also did the same during the Christmas period leading into January of the next year. So there was a plan in place to cater for heavy rainfalls and flooding in Region 3. The flooding would happen, and it did happen during that 5-year period I served on the Regional Democratic Council of Region 3. But what happened is that as soon as the water receded out in the river, the Essequibo River and Demerara River, and the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, whilst the water was receding there, water would move quickly off people's land. And you would not have a situation where people are flooded for days. Rather, you would have a situation where people were flooded for hours. And we would frequently visit them and we would communicate with them. The entire team, that is, it was a collaborative effort. But what has happened now is that there is no regional disaster risk management committee in Region 3. The operation of the regional executive officer is one that is loose, and he seems to not have any direction in terms of steering the region for there to be a plan of action to cater for events of this nature. Instead, what you see is a reactive approach where they go into communities, but the communities that they are going into now are selective communities, and they have assistance going to selective communities. And there is no visit by the regional chairman, his vice chairman, councillors, and even to Minister Deodat Indar, who is all over the region, but he is only stopping at selective communities. And I will reference the Malgretoot Meersorgan NDC. Malgretoot Meersorgan NDC was heavily hit, and a particular village by the name of Good Fortune is affected. And Good Fortune has a scheme and also the roadside. But the minister did not visit the roadside of Good Fortune, did not visit the bank of the Demerara River where Good Fortune is, and a number of residents reside there also. But instead, he went into the scheme alone. And the scheme is equally affected as the roadside. And he has also put together packages in terms of assistance for that particular area where he visited. You also have that same situation in the community of Denhamstel. Denhamstel was not visited. Virgin Nugent was not visited. Parika, only the roadside was visited. So I met with him not too long ago on the road because we were both visiting areas. And I said to him, I said, Minister Indar, what happened to Parika Back? What happened to Namles? What happened to Hyde Park and so on? And he said, okay, he's going there. But when I told him about the need for us to render assistance to these other areas that he is not touching and he's not visiting, he seemed very averse to providing assistance to these communities. I believe that there needs to be the re-establishment of the Regional Disaster Risk Management Committee in Region 3. I believe that there is need for involvement of all stakeholders, including NDC councillors, whether they belong to the APNU-AFC or the PPP. There needs to be involvement of the members of parliament. I am an elected representative of the people of Region 3 also. 20,000 plus votes voted for me, and I'm sitting in the National Assembly, but they are not providing any information or guidance nor any involvement of myself in any form of meeting and assessing and putting a structure or plan in place so that this matter can be looked at and dealt with. There needs to be this involvement of all stakeholders where we can attack this national issue from a front of togetherness so that we can do what is right for all of Region 3, not just a selected few. And I believe that is necessary for us to take into consideration going forward. From my assessment and hearing from citizens of Region 3, it is a fair conclusion that this disaster could have been averted. But unfortunately, I believe it was created in the sense that there was no maintenance of drains, no maintenance of trenches, no maintenance of canals leading up to this May-June period. And unfortunately, that is why we are where we are. Thank you very much, Imran.
Thank you very much, MP Mahipal, for your report on the situation in Region 3. There seems to be a very troubling pattern of selective distribution of flood relief. We now invite MP Annette Ferguson to give us a report on the situation in Georgetown. MP Ferguson.
Thank you very much, Imran, Comrade Leader, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen of the media. A pleasant, warm Tuesday afternoon to us all. During the course of Sunday, May 30th, 2021 and Monday, 31st of May, 2021, myself and colleague Christopher Jones, MP, visited several areas in South Georgetown. To name a few: All Boys Town, Charlestown, East and West Rumveld, North and South Rumveld, Tocqueville, and Guyhook. I must report that during our brief interactions with many of the residents in the various communities I have alluded to, many of the persons complained of the following discomforts they were faced with. Yards flooded, homes were heavily underwater, and this led to the destruction of personal properties such as chairs and other furnishings. I must also report that during our outreach in the North Rumveld area, at the back of North Rumveld, the residents there complained about the deliberate flooding to their areas, which would have caused by the works being done by the Central Housing and Planning Authority. And this is the housing development behind North Rumveld, which is a continuation, I think, of Cummins Lodge, 1768 or 1769 might be. So what was reported to us, and we saw it for ourselves, is that the main canal that leads the water from North Rumveld, some part of the joint service schemes there back of Lemaha Springs, those canals were actually blocked as a result of the infrastructural works being conducted by the Central Housing and Planning Authority. What was further reported is that the residents back of North Rumveld, they are involved in cash crop farming, and they would have lost tremendous of their cash crop due to the constant flooding of the farmlands. What we also discovered is that the canal separating North Ruimveldt from the actual work, the area that the actual works are being conducted, that canal was actually in height of the roadway. And this was as a result of the blockage caused by the Ministry of Housing through the Central Housing and Planning Authority. The residents further reported that hampers were not distributed, neither cleaning detergents were not distributed in their areas. They haven't seen, at the time we were on the ground, there was no government official that would have visited whether All Boys Town, East and West Ruimveldt, and the other areas I alluded to earlier. So I want to join in saying with my colleagues that there is urgent need for the re-establishment of the task force, which they should comprise residents of the back of North Ruimveldt, the main city council, the Ministry of Public Works, the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development, there is NDIA, there is urgent Ministry of for the re-establishment of the task force. I also want to which they should comprise join my colleagues by saying that there is need for routine public and regular clearance of all main canals, government and regional canals, that there is need, there is urgent Ministry of a close examination of the task force. I also want to join my colleagues earlier saying that there is need for routine and regular clearance of all main drive down Aubrey Barker Road. You will see for yourselves what is happening. Yes, apparently contracts were given out. The persons there would have pulled the grass after weeding the grass, have them placed in black bags, and they're left there lying across along the road shoulders. And this too is causing some setbacks in the drainage area because all of the grass are now being rolled back or blown back into the canals running parallel to the main corridor. If you're to take a drive down the main East Bank corridor on both the Western and Eastern carriageway from DSL, I think, up to Agricola, you'll see what is happening there. The streets are, the main area there is lined with bags. Apparently these rice bags these rice bags full with sand. So there's nothing happening. Apparently these works are being done and people are not carting off the debris in a timely manner. So this too is causing, the flooding and the water being on persons' private lands for some time. I also want to call to make this recommendation to the government that there's need for monthly or bi-monthly maintenance of all pumps and other equipment. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is my brief report for what is happening in Georgetown here in region number 4. Thank you very much, Imran.
Thank you very much, MP Ferguson. We now move to region 6, where we invite MP Dinesh Chouard Jaiprashad to present his report on the situation in his region. MP Jaiprashad.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you very much, Comrade Leader, Comrade MPs, and most importantly, members of the media. Pleasant good afternoon. I am Dinesh Jaiprashad, geographical MP for East Berbice Quarantine. And we are very much hit by the flood, and we can say that all areas in East Berbice Quarantine are very much affected. The bottom line is that this could have been avoided because if we had proper systems in place. We know that we had a serious flood in 2015, and 2015 to 2020, basically, we tried to adapt to the gravity and thereby causing the NDC, the RDC, NDNI, and the Ministry of Communities to push more into drainage and irrigation and infrastructure by the Ministry of Infrastructure as well. So basically, we have had a system in place whereby there was a regular monitoring evaluation of the waterway in the region, and this was taken seriously, whereby our ministers acted on those reports. What we have had from the change of government is that we have seen a setback in monitoring our canals and drains and defense and so forth. And this is resulting in what we see here today. So basically, I would say that East Berbice, Quarantine, East Bank Berbice is underwater. New Amsterdam, Vrijmenzerwin, severely hit. Kanji, East Kanji, New Forest to be specific, we have had breaches there. Our comrades are saying that the Kanji Creek is overtopping, which is causing excess water to come into the low-lying area where persons dwell, and the pumps and the coker are not capable to drain this overtopping as well as the heavy downpour. Number 19 is underwater. Fireridge Village, Albion, Chesney is severely affected. Brothers and sisters there in Chesney have experienced great loss, livestock, cash crops, and household items. Belvedere, Nick Hampshire, the only area that is fairly good, I would say, is Rosaltong. This is because Rosaltong takes care of its own boundaries. And there are 2 pumps there that are working so that they are in a stable state. Potorant severely hit. Babujan, the area of Babujan. I live at Babujan and we are very much affected by the water. This water is causing a lot of losses, livestock, crops, and people are complaining. It is getting discolored now. So we know that from that state, it will cause infectious disease and problems with our children and residents. Blackbush Polder. Blackbush Polder is another area that is severely hit. Some members from residents from Blackbush are indicating that if the canals were properly dug, we would not have this situation as we are experiencing. Former Minister Patterson made a mention. We need to reduce the water level during the dry season so that we have a larger capacity to take when it is May, June. This was not done. So it means then that the cleaning of the Blackbush area was not done. The digging of the canals were not done. And this caused us to have a pileup of slush, of sling mud in the canals, which prevents us from taking the entire amount of water that we are receiving now. So it is gross negligence. This could have been avoided if we had put systems in place by monitoring the NDC, the RDC, and doing what we are supposed to do. Manchester, Lancaster, Nurney, Limnere. I went today to Limnere and a gentleman indicated 79 chicken. 79 chicken he had to, dispose of. So who will compensate these individuals? Do we have a system? I was told that there are some individuals going around in the villages to take some note, but they are not going to all the villages. Well, we know that the news are here, and let it be heard that this flood is affecting all villages. As well as such, relief, aid, hampers must be given to all our brothers and sisters. Do not discriminate. People are observing what you are doing, and I know that most of what you will be giving, if not all, are taxpayers' money. And all of us are contributing to this. So persons in authority who will be doing the distribution and so get it right. Do not discriminate. All our persons, all our brothers and sisters are affected. We need to reestablish and put into operation the regional disaster committee so that people will be able to collaborate and save the region. It is not a one-man show. If we have had a system whereby we curtail flooded for 5 years, why is it now, 2021, we are not able to do that? This is saying to us that there is some form of mismanagement. A lot of NDC officials are indicating to us that they were told to divert resources into streetlights and crusher run. I want to bring this to the attention of the Honorable Minister who is giving these orders. Please, streetlights are important. But if the NDC were given the mandate to run themselves, then they could have used that money to widen the drainage, the canals, and dig it to capacity so that we could have prevented the flooding at this magnitude. We know that the crusher run is important, but allow the NDC to decide what they will do. Do not micromanage. If we look at the chapter, the act that states directly about the local government and the RDC, we will know that NDC must manage themselves. If all the NDCs in Region 6 were doing what they ought to do, then we would have received the rainfall, but not to this capacity. So I'm saying that there are persons who are experiencing more damage than others. We know that the NDC, the RDC need to put systems in place so that this could have been avoided. It is not that we can prevent it now. It is just reaction. We were recently informed that the pump that is at Adventure is a half-dead pump that was brought there. And when they brought the pump a few days ago, they had an issue with the fan. The radiator had an issue. Imagine you bring a pump to relieve East Berbice quarantine, and you bring in a pump with issue. So the radiator had issue. They changed the radiator. They took the radiator from another pump to fix this pump. As soon as they put it on, all the seals, the engine seals, all the oil seals gave way, leak out all the oils. They had to take another day to repair that. So I was told that it should be on tonight. At the moment, they are using the coker to allow the flow of water, but we are saying that the people of Blackbush are hardly hit in the East Berbice quarantine. Chesney and Blackbush Polar severely hit, and the water is rising every hour. So this is so far. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, MP Jai Prashad. We just have 2 more reports to receive from regions 9 and 10, and we'll go over to the Honorable Vincent Henry, who will give us a report on region 9.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is Vincent Henry, Member of Parliament, Region 9, Rupununi. I'm happy to make a report at this time on the flooding situation. Latam itself is in a fairly good order at this time. We had rains a week and a half or so ago, and we had floods, but those floods were not, so high like previous years. And I was doing some research, and I found that there were some very high floods in Manaus. And so I also checked with what was happening in Bovista and found that the floods did not reach there. Once that remains as it is, Latin will be fairly okay. But the day we get floods in Manaus, then we have to brace ourselves from some serious hardships in Latin itself. A few persons were relocated, and I was told today that they are quite okay in their shelters. As we go down to the South Rupununi, the people of Warrenau reported that they were affected by heavy floods and their cassava were destroyed. Some sort of food relief went in there, but it wasn't enough to do for all those who were affected. There were 20 farmers and limited amount of went in. Some sort of discrimination happened. The citizens of one receiving help. Then Cardinal, in which Tusha also said that he did receive some help there, but again, it wasn't enough. And I also received a report from Achirib, which said initially that no help had reached them, although others were getting. But this morning, I got a call to say that some stuff went in there and are still to be distributed. So we are waiting on a report on that. But the rains continue in the South Rupununi, especially in the Bashaidrun area, and this is going to be a long haul for them in that area. And as we all know, the people of Region 9, they depend on the cassava for their basic food item, the staple food item of farine and cassava bread. And once those items are not available in the house, then we can safely say that starvation is there. So what's going to be happening is that in a matter of a week or 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, there will be a serious shortage of cassava in the region as a whole. And as such, there will be a lot of hardships in terms of getting cassava, staple products of farine and cassava bread, and there will be some sort of starvation. So whatever help is coming in has to be not just for now, but for a medium-term period, so as to help our people to get over the shocks of this flash floods and the other floods that came into the South Rupununi. I would also like to say that in the North Rupununi, in the village of Karasabai, this morning, they woke up to high floods. We were hoping that they would not have been affected, but today they had some very high floods. A few days ago it started, but today it's very, very high. And I was told that one villager drowned, one villager got submerged and died today. So I'm calling on the administration to ensure that they put boats at strategic points to allow our people to move about to their farms and to other to let them to ensure that they are safe. Because what I understand is that the boat, there's one boat at Karasabai crossing, and you would normally cross over and you leave the boat there. So somebody comes after you, will have to swim to get that boat, and that's very dangerous in the high tide. So it's time that we do something about it. In the North Rupununi of Anai, I understand that a minister visited the area and he took in some supplies there. But unfortunately, he and his team bypassed Toka village. They also did not inform the Tushao of Anai that they were going in there. He had to be told by someone, and when he arrived there, actually, it was looking like a PPP meeting he went to, but he still sat in. The food items that were taken there for distribution were not handed over to the village council. They were left at the administrative building, and in the morning, they were being distributed by the PPP people. He had to seize the balance, and just to ensure that those who were seriously affected would have gotten some help. I was also told that the village of Saramo, it is a village that traditionally supports the APNU AFC. They too were on the high floods. I saw some pictures of it. All their roads were covered. It's like a creek instead of a road. and they too were left out of the distribution of basic items to keep them, keep them surviving. I would like to recommend that the regional administration of Region 9 ensure that we have a disaster preparedness body that includes not only PPP persons or include only one section of the population, but must also include our regional councillors. Our regional councillors are not included. And this is something that's been happening a lot in this region, where whatever the government does, it does not include us. The COVID committee, we're not included. You have a flag raising, we are not included. It's the government cannot run like that, because when disaster strikes, everybody gets affected. And we all have to work together to solutions and to put our shoulders to the wheel to make sure that our people, are all right. So I am appealing to this government here. At least be sensible, be caring, and ensure that our people are all included to work for solutions so that we can be able to have better life for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, MP Vincent Henry. We'll now take our final report from Region 10, and unfortunately, this one may very well be even grimmer than the ones that you have heard so far. I now invite MP Jermaine Figuera to present the report on the flooding situation in Region 10. MP Figuera?
Thank you. Thank you, Imran. Comrade Leader, fellow colleagues, members of the media. Permit me from the outset to report that Linden Region 10 has been badly affected by this flooding. And what has exacerbated this unwelcome conundrum is the discriminatory practices of this very limp, lackluster, lukewarm approach by the administration in bringing the much needed help and assistance for the people of this shared geographical space. Communities in Linden affected by flooding to some magnitude are as follows. Parts of Block 22, Blueberry Hill, Section C, Christianburg, Focus Street, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Alley, Silver City, Victory Valley, Silvertongue alone, over 60 houses have been affected, 245 residents. Canvas City, West Utuco, over 80 households affected. Their agricultural crops, farmlands underwater. This community, I must indicate to your listeners, is the community that provides Linden with food. This is the farming part of Linden, West Utuco. And a lot of those persons' crops are underwater. Severe flooding has occurred in West Utuco. Spikeland, over 60 houses affected. Rainbow City, 20 houses affected. Caracara, Old Caracara, Caracara New Scheme has been affected. In the region, sub-region 2, most of the affected areas there, specifically Kukwani and areas like Lamp Island, Waterfront, the entire space where persons occupy those areas to live are under water, over 8 feet of water. All of those residents had to be evacuated to a primary school. And the school does not have the much needed amenities to satisfy the needs of those families. Everything for those families have been affected. Their electrical appliances, their furniture are underwater. Ururu, Araimo. Ururu depends heavily on the forestry sector, but they have averted to farming because of the significant use of the farming concession. And over 15 farmers has reported that their farms are under water. And a lot of those persons too have been affected to the point that they had to be evacuated. We were informed that Minister Ejil and the president was in Kukwani, and I was told that 3 truckloads of assistance materials were sent to the region. But a resident alleged that Bishop Ejil, Minister Ejil, were asking persons who they voted for before they were determined to be the recipient of a hamper in a crisis, a flood crisis, coupled with this COVID-19 situation. So Imran and members of the media, we have a very dire situation before us, and we hope that by us doing this press conference that a much needed assistance would come. And I must say we do welcome the 1 week assistance of cleaning agents and the food hamper by the government. But that in itself does not give the much needed help to alleviate the people of the crisis that they are facing. And coupled with that, those communities like Lamp Island and the waterfront area, a lot of those houses have pit toilets, latrine, and it is covered in water. So there's a health situation also. A budding health crisis is going to soon emerge in Kokwani, coupled with COVID-19, because a lot of these persons use the river water to cook, to bathe, to clean, and now it is mixed with the latrine, feces, and urine. So there's a possibility that we might have a cholera outbreak, leptospirosis, and other waterborne disease. So this definitely has to be given the level of urgency that is required for the safety of the residents of Okwani, Araima, and those areas. We have seen, and unfortunately, of all of the communities that I would have named thus far, we have only seen outreaches in Linden with 3 communities: Spikeland, Karakara, and parts of West Sutuko. Known PVP stronghold areas, known PPP stronghold areas, only those communities. And I have listed countless communities that have been badly affected by flooding. And only those communities were visited by ministers who allegedly were asking who you voted for to be the recipient of food hampers in a crisis. So this is a situation that pertains a lot of discrimination. This flooding has not discriminated which house it went to affect the lives of countless Lindeners and residents of Region 10. We have a humanitarian crisis in the world's most deadly pandemic, COVID-19, and persons are being discriminated in a time like this by this administration. It is unacceptable and it must stop now. So we are recommending, and we would have called the regional chairman, the mayor would have called for a regional task force to be set up. Up to now, we have not gotten a response by the administration, but nevertheless, we would have engaged, the regional leadership would have met, the RDC, the mayor and town council, we would have reached out with the Linden Chambers of Commerce, some NGOs, the religious community, and we were able to, and the business community, I must add too, to garner some resources to help a lot of families that are in need. But they need more than that. They need financial aid, financial grants, especially the farmers, especially those single parent mothers who are affected. All of the furniture have damaged, the electrical appliances have damaged. A single parent who was knocked off indicated to me that she started a chicken farm with over 200 chickens, and all of those chickens have died as a result of this farming. So we're saying a lot more is needed, a lot more is being requested, and a lot more must be given to the residents of this community and all across Ghana that has been affected by flooding. Imran, thank you.
Thank you very much, MP Figueroa. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, the leader of the opposition and various MPs will be happy to take your questions. with regard to, we like to concentrate this press conference on the issue of flooding. So we'll take your questions, and if you can indicate by using the raise hand feature in Zoom. If there are no questions,
Yes.
Mark Hitchcock, go right ahead.
I have a question. I'm not seeing the raise hand. I know it's just confined to flooding, but I'd like to use the opportunity to talk about what the PPP is doing to flood the nation with a bunch of questionable acts. And again, it's being confined to flood. Flooding of the evil acts of the PPP regime, political victimization, political interferences with the Police Service Commission, the police force, political interferences at GCOM with the motion to sack 3 senior officers there at GCOM. And also 300 persons are being terminated their services at the Guyana Water Incorporated. That's a major flood of bad development, bad policies by the PPP. So those are my 3 questions related to flooding, albeit not through water. Thank you.
Thank you very much for raising your concerns, Mark. They're very serious concerns, and we do commit to having a press engagement subsequent to this one, when we will address, well, it may be very difficult to address all of the issues, the other issues in one press conference, but we'll certainly identify some of those that you have highlighted and address those. We also have a question coming from Wendell Badri. It's also off topic, so it's not dealing with flood. We'll take that question for the Leader of the Opposition. Wendell, go ahead. I see Wendell has submitted his question by text and is asking me to read it on his behalf. He's asking Leader of the Opposition to address the issue of the firing of staff at GWI. I'm not sure if he's trying to associate whether that may have had an impact as well, contribute as a contributory factor to the issue of flooding. But he's asking you, Mr. Harmon, to respond to the issue of the firing of staff at GWI.
Imran, like Mark identified, some of these are floods. Some of them have to do with water. But I've committed to addressing these issues before the end of the week, because we wanted to focus primarily on this flooding situation. But before the end of the week, I will address those other matters which are of major concern. I will deal with that.
Thank you, Mr. Harmon. If there are any further questions, we'll take them. If not, I will invite Mr. Harmon to make his closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Imran. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, I want to thank you very much for your attention this afternoon. It's been a press conference that's been a little longer than the usual ones, but I do believe that the report from the members of parliament covering all of the geographic space of Guyana was important information for the media and for all of the people of this country, because we have been starved of information on the extent of flooding. And so I have committed the resources, limited though they may be, of the Leader of the Opposition to establishing an emergency center which will help in providing information to the public, disseminating information in a timely manner so that people can take the necessary measures to protect themselves. Very often, the state will do things, and very often people have to do things to themselves, they have to help themselves. But if we provide them with early information, they will be able to do so. And so the use of these regional radio stations that we establish all across this country must be used to provide timely information to citizens about flooding, about heavy rainfall, about mudslides, and all of these issues that will affect them in their daily lives. The persons who have lost significantly crops, livestock, furnishing for their homes. Again, I repeat that there has to be some measure of relief and financial relief for those persons. We can't claim to be a country with all of these resources, with millions of dollars, US dollars in the bank, and still we cannot look after our people. Our people must be our priority. And this is why this press conference this afternoon was important enough so that everybody in every part of the world can understand what's taking place in every single region of this country and every community that's severely affected by flood waters. I thank you very much for your attention and the coverage of this press conference. And I trust that this information will provide the people who are so affected with some level of comfort that their plight have been raised at the highest level and that there can be some amount of relief coming their way shortly. I thank you.
Thank you very much for your closing statement, Mr. Harmon. Thank you, members of parliament, for your various reports. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, we thank you very much for joining us. And I want to finally thank the many persons who have joined us online and via Benchcop Radio that carried this press conference live for joining us. We will remain engaged. And I would like to urge the colleagues in the media to use your respective platforms to keep persons updated on the latest information and all the advisories and warnings which may come from the CDC and other agencies, so they may be able to take all precautions in a timely manner to prevent any adverse effects from the projected increased flooding in the coming days. Thank you very much and good afternoon.